Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the sports show. We are live on WBONTV.com. We are also live on 92.5 WEKY, 103.5 WKXO, and B99.3 WIRV. He is Jamie Boggs. I'm Michael Watkins. And Jamie, another week with no sports, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. At least we hope there is. We have seen another increase in coronavirus cases with the NBA, Major League Baseball, and we're starting to see some of these names now say, you know what, I'm not going to go play in the NBA bubble. I'm not going to play Major League Baseball this year. And some big names. Oladipo comes to mind, who said they're not going to be in the NBA restart. Now he's listing, coming back from an injury as the reason why. And he's probably the biggest name to say no on coming back. But in baseball, there's been several names that have said that they will not be joining the MLB season once it gets going here later on this month.
Yeah, there have been a lot. I heard that there were 38 MLB players that tested positive when trying to return. That's a lot, man. And they're going to have 60 expanded rosters and that kind of thing to I guess allow for the depth that you and I talk about. I feel like every week we talk about if sports happen, depth is going to be important. Yeah. But I don't know, because baseball is not doing the bubble. Baseball's traveling.
Yeah.
Even though it's shorter travel, I feel like there's more of a risk there for players. I saw pictures of players training. Mike Trout was running bases with a mask on. Buster Posey had a mask on under his face mask, and they're in California. Like, I can't imagine trying to – like, I get winded wearing a mask from my car to Lowe's. I can't imagine trying to play a baseball game with a mask on. So I feel like I get more pessimistic every week.
Yeah, and everybody got excited. Baseball's coming back. The NBA's coming back. It ain't going to be the same baseball and NBA that we're used to seeing. And especially now that, I've seen on Twitter this morning, man, that it's not a sure thing that baseball, even though they've announced the season, they've got plans in place, and the players and the owners have come to an agreement. It's not a for sure thing that baseball does get played this year.
Yeah, I mean, we're still there. Arizona's scaling back on their reopening. Florida's seeing like almost 10,000 cases a day, which is crazy. Crazy number of cases every day down there. So as things continue to scale back, I'm not going to be surprised if we do see more and more players dropping out. And I know the National shut down their camp this morning just because there was a backlog in tests. They didn't get the tests back from their players, so they said, we're not going to practice till we get our tests back. Kentucky basketball released this morning or late last night that they are going to test their basketball players every week. So what happens when those tests get delayed or backlogged? There are just so many things that can go wrong, I think, that can cause us to dial this back and not have baseball or basketball.
I've seen, and you and I talked last week about the test itself, the coronavirus test itself. I've seen a place here locally that is doing a different way of testing now. And I think there's actually a few different ways to do the coronavirus test. Now, obviously, we saw in the beginning the straight up the nose, touch the brain test, which is not the case anymore. And we've also seen that you can do I think now there's a mouth swab that you can do. Mm-hmm. So they swab your mouth, and I think that one of your clients had that test done. Now I've seen a local place here that's doing testing. It's a drive-up test. So you drive up, and they come over to your vehicle, social distance, of course, and they actually pull out a regular-sized Q-tip. They give you the Q-tip, or you pull it out yourself out of a package that they open up in front of you. You do the swab of your nose yourself, but you don't have to go up to your brain. You do a quick swab right there where you're like right here. Right? So that's where you would swab yourself. So you do that 3 times, 3 swirls. Then you go over to the next side. You do 3 swirls there. And then you drop the Q-tip in a test tube. And I don't know how long it takes to get results. But that's the new way that I've seen a local place doing testing. Again, I have not been tested yet. I'm thinking about doing it myself, though, Jamie, just to see, listen, I don't like going to the doctor. I don't like going to the hospital. I mean, if anybody's in the hospital, to go see them, I don't even like doing it. I don't even like going in the door. So, if I don't have any symptoms, I don't think that I need to be tested.
Mhm.
But if it's first of all, it's free. I think everybody can be tested free. So, I don't, if it looks this way and it's not as bad as the Q-tip straight up to the top of your skull, then it's a little bit easier to have a test. So I may go this week or next week and just have one done again, just to see the process and everything, and maybe give an update to the folks here as to what that's like. We have seen a lot of people locally, coaches and players that are being tested because they're having to come back onto campus and do all these things. I don't know what sports is going to look like in the fall. And in a few minutes, we'll talk about the KHSAA, which has unveiled or will be unveiling maybe some more guidelines later on this week. But it's a scary time right now. I mean, there's no way to prepare for sports. And for us, normally we're already hitting the trails with sponsors and, putting our schedule together for football games. We don't know. And we don't know who's playing, how many games they're playing, what they're doing, where they're playing. I mean, there's just no idea right now. And that's the biggest thing right now for us, is just trying to just figure out what the plan is for the KHSAA and these local high schools so that we can prepare. But, I was hoping that Major League Baseball and the NBA, once they got going again, that would kind of give us all a glimmer of hope. Well, I think it's even made it even more scary now because of all the positive cases that we're seeing. I think it's kind of putting more of a damper on things than it is anything else.
Yeah, I agree. And especially when you talk about these millionaire athletes, I always kind of assumed that they had the resources to isolate properly and to not go out. I don't know their activities and what they do day to day. But I would think they would be the ones that you think about them having the money to have the best care and to have all the resources around them to avoid this. But if they're catching it at such a rate, what about these high school kids that are having to carpool because they can't get a ride to practice or whatever? It can spread super quickly, and I don't know. I think we're one team epidemic away from it all getting shut down.
Well, to that point, last week there were several high schools that closed down practice and closed down their facilities because of either positive cases or even just the threat of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing the cases increase, and some high schools have just said, you know what, we're done. We're not even going to, attempt to practice and get ready for the season because we don't want anything to fall back on us. And that's a big thing for the schools right now too, because if you have a player test positive and something was to go wrong, if he was to have let's say a player catch, I don't know what sickness is going around now, but if they added that onto the coronavirus, then there could be some serious impact on all that. So I think we've seen some of the smaller schools. I think I saw Phelps, which is I think maybe a 1A or a 2A school. They shut down practice. There was a couple other ones that had just altogether we're not doing anything right now after a positive test or just a threat of it. And if that's the case, will some of these other schools follow lead and just say, you know what, we're not even going to have seasons because of this stuff? And it could be the KHSAA could say, hey, here's our plan, and some of these schools could be like, well, that's cool, we're not being involved in it.
And I spent some time thinking about that this morning. Are there other things in society that we're doing this for? Other recreational or, I don't know, just are we tracking normalcy by sports? And at what point, I love sports. This is one of my favorite parts of my job is getting to do the show, getting to cover sports with you. At what point is it not worth it? And that's hard for me to say as a coach and somebody who spends most of his time watching, writing about, broadcasting, whatever. But I don't feel like we're doing this with anything else. What else are we pushing the boundaries on to say, is this kind of ancillary activity in our society worth it?
Well, last week we talked about some local softball and baseball teams that have been traveling out of state to go play in these tournaments. And you said that so Kentucky has now opened up as far as, playing baseball and having local tournaments here in the state. I think you said there was one in Mount Sterling, and you all have one coming up this weekend in Somerset. So what have you seen in the ones that you have been to? Is it any different than before, or are they taking extra steps to provide safety?
From what I've seen, it's not as different as you would expect. The main difference is that we did not shake hands with the other team after the game. We got on the baseline, tipped our hats or whatever. But I'm hearing that was 2-3 weeks ago that shaking hands is kind of resumed. So it sounds like it's no different right now, because there's nobody from the health department there regulating social distance.
Yeah.
Usually the people running the tournaments are busy making sure that everything's running smoothly, and it's not really monitored closely. It sounds like it's not being emphasized at all. Now, we are practicing. Berea City Park has opened to field reservations for practices, and they've issued guidelines, and they do occasionally, go around and monitor that at the Berea City Park, which is good, and they'll just stop and say, hey, you guys are too close together or whatever. So that's positive, but the tournaments are more like the Wild West.
Well, I actually last night was at a baby tailgate. So
Okay.
my wife's best friend is having a baby, potentially could be here by the time the show airs. And so the family cannot go into the hospital. And normally, when you've got a baby,
Right.
your parents, grandparents, cousins, friends, everybody just comes to the hospital. Oh, she's the baby, hold him for the first time, that kind of thing. You can't do that now. It's pretty much the dad and the mom are by themselves in the hospital, and everybody else is kind of off to themselves. Well, so what this family did last night was had a baby tailgate. We had cornhole. We took a projector and had a movie for the kids that were there. But it was pretty cool. And the room that the couple was in was facing the parking lot that we were in. So they could literally look out the window and see,
Wow.
25, 30 people out here celebrating the arrival of the baby that is here now possibly, or is on the way. So it was pretty cool. It was the first time I had seen something like that. And I have not heard of anything like that. So, and we actually had a story about that aired on the newscast earlier today about the baby tailgate. So it's pretty cool just to be involved in something like that. But that's something else that I think is going to be a big deal when football season rolls back around, because, a lot of folks will tailgate and not even go into the game.
Yeah.
How do you tailgate with this stuff going on?
I think about Kentucky football when you look at that. I know EKU has a huge tailgate, and not that big of a football stadium. A lot of people go and they socialize and they leave. At UK, there are a lot of, sorority, fraternity houses around. I guess you can tailgate at home if you're in, whether or not you're in walking distance. But I think it is just going to push people to tailgate earlier in the day. So I don't know if a noon start, usually people start tailgating at like 9 a.m., which sounds crazy, but I guess it's going to push it back into homes, and then that's putting people inside of places and even more isolated areas, and kind of, goes against the reason for not having tailgating anyway.
Well, here's a big question before we take our first commercial break. With these schools, okay, football is some of their biggest money makers, if not the biggest money maker for a lot of these athletic programs in the schools. If you have to limit fans, if you don't allow tailgating, and people will say, well, I'll just tailgate at home, play cornhole at the house, and then watch the game on TV. Well, how much of that is a backlash to where some of these colleges say, we won't air the games? Or, again, it's the unknown. We don't know. We don't know what to do. We don't know if it's you can't go to the game, so you can't watch it, or maybe the TV money is just so big with this going on that the colleges say, okay, that's fine, stay home and stay safe. Or, I don't know what the proper answer is to that, but we are going to soon find out. Hopefully, we're what? The first football game is normally first weekend in September, second weekend in September. So we're 2 months away from it. And we don't even know what's going on. As of right now, I think everybody is moving in the direction of we are going to have sports in the fall. But there's a lot of backlash that could come with that, especially if some of these schools and some of these athletic programs start to lose money on having a team.
Yeah, the NBA commissioner, Adam Silver, in an interview last week, he said, yes, we're fully intended on playing basketball, but of course something could happen to get it canceled. And all the articles that I read focused on him saying, yes, we're moving forward and playing. But the comment about, yeah, we might not, is what stuck out the most to me. Of even people looking and planning on moving forward realize that there's not a small chance, there is a decent chance that this could all get unrailed.
We've got a big show for you today, and again, trying to continue to provide local sports coverage. Jamie Boggs and myself here with you. So here is what our broadcast looks like this evening. When we come back, the KHSAA has unveiled when they are going to announce some new guidelines. So we'll discuss that when we come back in our second segment. In our third segment tonight, Joe Benton, the Estill County basketball and golfer, will join us in a phone interview to talk about the Mr. Basketball ceremonies. He was 14th Region Player of the Year. We'll discuss, first of all, his senior year of high school being cut short, and just about how the basketball season ended and kind of preview looking ahead to him playing golf at EKU. So we'll talk to Joe about that. That's coming up in our third segment. And in our fourth segment, Jamie, Makur Maker, the high school phenom, has chosen his college. He got offers from Kentucky, UCLA, I think Kansas, some really big names, and he chose Howard. So we'll get into that later on in the show as well. We'll come back, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the Sports Show live on WVONTV.com and on the radio stations of Wallingford Broadcasting.
I'm Michelle. And I'm Jennifer. And in the spring of 1992, Bishop Small Engine Repair was born in our mom and dad's barn in Estill County.
Then in the fall of 1992, we made the move to Madison County, where we are today. With the support of our family, customers, and community, we have continued to grow in the outdoor power industry. With a full line of products from Cupcadet, Grasshopper, Echo, and Shindawa, we can help you tackle your yard so you can enjoy it with your family. Bishop Small Engine Repair, where our focus is our customer. Stop on in, 119 North Estill Avenue in Richmond. We can't wait to see ya.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today, with no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
Patrick O'Neill has been serving Central and Eastern Kentucky since 1995. When someone is accused of something they didn't do, or when a good person makes a mistake, they need the best representation they can find. And that's Patrick O'Neill. Whether it's criminal defense, Social Security, disability, personal injury, workers' compensation, or deeds and wills, when you need legal advice, trust the expertise of Patrick O'Neill. He will get you the money you deserve. His office is located in Jackson, but Patrick practices all over Central and Eastern Kentucky. For more information or for a free consultation, call 606-666-2990.
Who makes the best meal in Richmond? Nuevo Vallarta. Friendly service, a place that's good for kids and good for groups. Head to Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. Nuevo Vallarta is known for warm hospitality, great prices, great food, and the best margaritas and fajitas in town. Doesn't a huge 32-ounce ice-cold beer sound great? Start with an appetizer, order a la carte, or choose from their huge menu of Mexican favorites for grown-ups and kids. Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today, with no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
Back here on the Sports Show, Jamie, the KHSAA is going to have an interview coming up. It's going to be like a meeting they're having later on this week to discuss some more guidelines, some revisions heading forward. So the KHSAA has a Board of Control meeting scheduled for Friday. It will be live streamed, and they are expecting updates on fall sports guidelines. So hopefully by Friday, the picture is more clear, and it will give us maybe a better idea as to what we're going to be able to do in the fall. That's still kind of an unknown right now. Nobody knows. But on Friday, again, the KHSAA has a Board of Control meeting scheduled Friday to discuss updates on fall sports, and that meeting will be live streamed. So that'll be good for us to kind of get an idea as to kind of what we're going to be allowed to do and what the local schools are going to be allowed to do. So last week, in scrolling through Twitter, we've seen another sports site like us had tweeted out that there was an idea from the KHSAA to move baseball season to the fall and then move football season to the spring, and then have basketball kind of be in those middle months there. So what the proposed idea from this sports site was that the KHSAA had already made a decision, or we're going to be discussing potentially having baseball be played in September, October, and November, and then have basketball go December, January, and February, and then have football begin in March, April, and then finish in May. Now, that was an idea that I could get on board with. You know, we get sports, I don't care what it is. The issue with that would be if you push football back to the spring and have it end in May, do you then go back to your normal schedule the following year, which would then have football beginning back up in July, where the players get a month off, basically? So I think that was maybe the biggest hiccup in that idea. So then the KHSAA tweeted out to correct early misinformation. There is no proposal under consideration or upcoming vote to switch the football and baseball seasons. The authors of the original tweet have retracted, and any discussion of this type of move is not on any upcoming board agenda for a vote. That coming from the KHSAA main Twitter account 6 days ago. So they quickly put a halt to that discussion. Jamie, I mean, if that was a possibility, I mean, to me, it sounds good. In theory, I mean, there was no baseball season in the spring this year, so you give these kids a chance to get out there and get to play now. But I think, again, the biggest hiccup with that would be you go to football ending in May. Do you go back to your normal schedule after that and then have the kids begin the football season again 2 months later?
Yeah, I guess the theory there is football is more apt to spread it. You're in the locker room, you're in each other's faces, you're grabbing each other. So baseball is probably a better spread it out option that will impact other sports, like what do you do with volleyball and that kind of thing. So it'll be, yeah, I don't even know about that hiccup there, because I guess basketball and baseball to a degree are year-round sports at this point for a lot of kids. Football's really not. I mean, some kids train year-round, but you're not playing football games in April and May right now.
Yeah, there's no football AAU season, you know, like there is the other sports.
Right. I think giving a month to 6 weeks off could be fine. I mean, we're not talking about Tom Brady going through a season at 45 years old and needing 4 or 5 months to get back to where he can walk right. Like, these are high school, middle school kids. I think giving them just a couple months, maybe you start the season a couple weeks late. But I think the schedule is what it is for a reason. Like, things work well with football opening the year into basketball, and then everything is kind of stacked on the schedule the way it is. So I think moving back in the direction of the way it was is what you have to do eventually. Maybe you stagger that by a couple weeks or whatever. But I love this move. I don't know. I feel like this came up really early on.
Yeah.
From a lot of different people when sports were canceled in the spring of let's just play baseball in the fall and flip football to avoid the contagion spreading. But and again, I like the idea, but I think it's going to be as simple as, do we have sports or not, no matter what's scheduled?
Here's what I think we are going to see on Friday. Now, I've not spoken to anybody from the KHSAA. I don't have anybody on speed dial from over there. I know a couple of the guys that are, you know, kind of the higher ups within the organization. But what I expect on Friday is this. There will be a football season. What I think will happen is they're going to say, you can play your district games, and then they will allow each school to add on one additional game. Now, for Estill County, they might say each school can have, what's your biggest gate outside of your district games? What game attracts the most money? For Estill County, it's probably the Powell County game. It's a big rivalry game. You get Powell County back over there. And this year it could be even bigger with, you know, Coach Jones, who was at Estill County for, you know, I think 20 years or nearly 20 years, now taking over as the head coach at Powell County. So that game could be an even bigger rivalry game than we've seen in years past. Then you also have Madison Central, Madison Southern. That's by far the biggest game in this county, in Madison County. So if they say you can play your 4 district games and then one additional game, well, obviously I think Central and Southern would both agree that's the game we got to play. for Berea. Maybe it's Jellicoe, Tennessee, or maybe it's another local small school that they can get to come up and play and, try to put a win under their belt. And Tony D getting that an outside game to kind of get his team ready. So, that's what I expect. I don't see any way that they're going to be able to play 10-game schedule. Maybe they back it up to 8, but I think the safest way for us to have sports is to say, here's what you are allowed to do. You get your 4 district games. We begin the season maybe mid-September, late September, and then you've got, you got that stuff going on later on in the year. So that's what I expect. And now the bigger question is fans in the stands. Are you going to allow fans in the stands with all this stuff as well? That's kind of the bigger unknown. I think the scheduling aspect is a little bit easier because of, what games you can play, how many games you can play. But do you allow fans in the stands?
And I think that question really impacts what you went back to with the gate, though. Like, if you're not allowing fans, it doesn't matter who you bring. If you're not getting any money from fans traveling from Pal to Estill or whatever. So if seating is limited, I wonder what that's going to do. Because what I've seen from churches locally is they're supposed to be at 33% capacity. Maybe it's 50 now. I don't know. But it's been like 15 and 20%. Like, people are not going. How different is sports that if they say 33%, are we going to have pre-sale tickets, or is there going to be a long line and people have to be turned away? Or are people not going to come? And like we've talked about before, if people don't go to high school football, the funding for the rest of the school year is kind of sunk. What about the idea of playing each district opponent twice?
I mean, I could see that being – I could see that working, yeah.
That's more games, and the point of playing your district games is to limit travel, right? You're playing people closer to you that you're going to be playing anyway. Do a home and home with every district opponent. That gets you to, an 8-game schedule or so. And then if you're allowed fans, that way you're not missing, let's say, Southern and Central. I don't know where they play in this year.
They would be at Southern this year.
Yeah, so that way Southern's not – if there is a gate to be had, it's not just Southern's, that you play both, and Central will get some of that too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to see something like that, because football is so different from other sports in that, like, you don't even know what plays are going to work until like the 8th or 9th game of the year. Like, you don't have your identity yet. And I don't know, all sports are like that to a degree, but just 4 or 5 games in a season, I don't know. It's almost more like spring ball at that point.
I tell you whose job I don't want right now, and that's Julian Tackett, who's the director, the president of the KHSAA, the commissioner of the KHSAA. I would not want his job right now, because you're about to unveil a plan not only for football, but basketball teams right now. They can't even pass a ball to one another, I don't think. I spoke to Alan Feldhouse last week about their fireworks, the tent they had set up over there by Applebee's. And we also talked about basketball, and he's like, you know what? We've not even brought our guys in yet. Like, we don't – the only thing that you can pretty much do right now is condition, and they never condition this early. Normally that around this time they have maybe 5-on-5 or some open gyms, but they don't really get into conditioning just yet. So he's like, I'm not changing my game plan up. In middle of July, we'll get going with, our conditioning work and getting ready for the upcoming season. So hopefully with this plan that's going to be unveiled on Friday, they have a clearer picture as to what even basketball can do. One thing that I think with football as well is going to be key is the playoffs. If they want to limit the amount of games, we may see a decrease in the amount of playoff teams this year. And I don't even know if that's a bad thing. Mm-hmm. You look in recent years, these 4-team football districts, there's some teams that do not deserve to be in the playoffs. They're just – I'll give you an example. Madison Central last year, okay? Now, their district was down, but it was a down year for Madison Central football. Coming off a year in which you win a regional championship for the first time in school history, you have this amazing year. You have all these seniors. You were expecting kind of a downward spiral for 1 year because of all the overhaul and guys you had to replace on the roster. and we've talked to Coach Centers. You had a lot of injuries. The quarterback goes down later in the year. You had a lot of stuff that didn't go your way, causing the season to go awry like it did. Madison Central didn't win the district games last year. They were in a couple of them, but I mean, did they deserve a spot in the playoffs? Probably not. So if you've got a team that's winless in the district, now, even with being winless in the district, they still almost pulled off an upset as the 4th seed in the district over the 1 seed. But there are some cases where you see a team go 0-4 in the district or 0-3 in the district, and they're getting beat by 30, 40 points. That team does not even deserve a shot. So we may see a case where they limit the number of games for some of these teams and say for playoffs, we're only going to have 2 teams from each district, the 1st and 2nd seed, advance to the playoffs. So that's something that I think we could possibly see on Friday as well, other than a limited regular season schedule, is a limited number of postseason teams that make it in postseason games.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, you're cutting the majority of the games out. It's essentially like you're jumping 2 rounds in the playoffs. And I would be perfectly fine with that, especially in a shortened season. If you are able to play everybody twice, which I don't think is going to happen. I think that's just my idea. But then you have a really clear picture of who those top 2 teams are. And then do the same as you've done always with the cross matchup with the other team in the region or whatever. But I would rather see them play more local regular season games and then decrease the playoffs, because like the teams that you say don't deserve it, they have their chance at least at that point to make the playoffs. And if they didn't this year, then they didn't. I don't know if that's a long-term model, but for this year, I think it's good. Yeah,
I do too. And so what you're basically doing is eliminating the first round playoff matchups. So let's say if this idea is, brought up, or if it is possible to do this, what you're basically going to see is if my idea is put in place, you would see 4, maybe 5 regular season games, your 4 district games, maybe an added game, whatever. Then you would also see 4 postseason games. So you're looking at if you from start to finish, possibly 8 games between the regular season and the postseason. So that's kind of, if my idea was put in place, that's what you could potentially see as far as the number of games go. Now, one thing we might see as well is with some of these high schools, if they can't have their normal games on Friday nights, do they move them up in the week? Do we see a Thursday evening game and maybe see it at like 6 o'clock? Because if you're playing closer to home, if you're playing your district games, maybe you can move up the time frame and not have to pay the electric bill on the lights. That's a possibility as well. Do we see Saturday day games or Saturday morning games? So there is a lot out there as far as potential options. I don't know which one is the safest or which one is the most reasonable, but I like having different ideas on the table. And of course, we'll find out Friday. Again, the KHSAA will have a live stream up on Friday as they have a board meeting to discuss guidelines for fall sports. So that's coming up on Friday, and then we will obviously be going over that on next week's show. Jamie, it's time for another commercial break. When we come back, Joe Benton was the 14th Region Basketball Player of the Year. He is signed to play golf at EKU, and we talked to him about his senior high school year being cut short, the way his basketball season ended with him missing the game-winning shot against Knott County Central, and just everything about his career. Listen, Joe is one of, if not the best, to ever lace him up over at Estill County. And they've had some really good ones, not only recently, but back in the day as well. So we'll talk to him about kind of what he's been doing during the pandemic. And you probably believe he's been playing a lot of golf. So we'll talk to him about that coming up in our next segment. And then in our final segment, we'll go over Makur Makers, however you say his name, we'll talk about the decision from him to sign to play basketball at an HBCU college, which is an historically black college, and playing basketball at Howard University. So we'll talk about that in our final segment. All that and more coming your way, folks. Don't go anywhere. We'll come back on the Sports Show live on the radio stations of Wallingford Broadcasting and WBONTV.com.
I'm Michelle. And I'm Jennifer. And in the spring of 1992, Bishop Small Engine Repair was born in our mom and dad's barn in Estill County.
Then in the fall of 1992, we made the move to Madison County, where we are today. With the support of our family, customers, and community, we have continued to grow in the outdoor power industry. With a full line of products from Kokudet, Grasshopper, Echo, and Shindawa, we can help you tackle your yard so you can enjoy it with your family. Bishop Small Engine Repair, where our focus is our customer. Stop on in, 119 North Estill Avenue in Richmond. We can't wait to see ya.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today. With no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
Patrick O'Neill has been serving Central and Eastern Kentucky since 1995. When someone is accused of something they didn't do, or when a good person makes a mistake, they need the best representation they can find. And that's Patrick O'Neill. Whether it's criminal defense, Social Security, disability, personal injury, workers' compensation, or deeds and wills, when you need legal advice, trust the expertise of Patrick O'Neill. He will get you the money you deserve. His office is located in Jackson, but Patrick practices all over Central and Eastern Kentucky. For more information or for a free consultation, call 606-666-2990.
Who makes the best meal in Richmond? Nuevo Vallarta. Friendly service, a place that's good for kids and good for groups. Head to Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. Nuevo Vallarta is known for warm hospitality, great prices, great food, and the best margaritas and fajitas in town. Doesn't a huge 32-ounce ice-cold beer sound great? Start with an appetizer, order a la carte, or choose from their huge menu of Mexican favorites for grown-ups and kids. Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today. With no payments for 6 months and low rates, there's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
We're here with Joe Benton from Estill County. And Joe, before we get into talking about basketball and golf, let's talk about the last couple of months, not being able to finish out your senior school year because of the coronavirus. Just talk about what it was like being at home and not being able to go to school to finish out the school year.
Yeah, it was definitely hit me by surprise for sure. But, I mean, that happens in life, so you just got to go with the flow. But school at home was, I think, harder than going to school in general because you got to manage your time more. Whenever I was at home, I had all day long. I didn't do my work till midnight, so I go to bed at 4 a.m. So it was harder, I think, not going to school than it was staying at home.
Well, let's talk about your senior basketball season. Obviously, it didn't end the way you and the team and Coach Bentley would have liked for it to have ended. Just talk about that final game and just your feelings losing in the first round of the 14th Region Tournament this year with having some expectations where you thought maybe you would go a little bit further.
Yeah, it was definitely a disappointment. But, I mean, we exceeded expectations for sure, I thought. But that last game was, I don't know, I've never went into a region game and not been a little nervous. You know what I mean? In that game, I wasn't nervous at all. And, I mean, I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I just had that much confidence. But sometimes things can make it bite you. But I thought overall, I mean, we didn't play our best game, but not play our best game and just get beat by a point to the home court advantage in Knott County. I mean, and Kobe Click, I mean, he played awesome that game. He still didn't pull it out, but I mean, I hate even thinking about it, to be honest.
Well, let's talk about the ceremony, which took place last weekend, the Mr. Basketball ceremony. It's a big deal to be even considered for Mr. Basketball. You've had a lot of big names down the line that have won that award, so to even be considered was a big deal. But this year, because of the coronavirus pandemic, not being able to actually attend the event, talk about the process leading up to the day of, and talk about what it was like having to watch it from home.
It was definitely different because I've been to a ceremony with Caleb Bonnie, and I mean, that's what I was expecting to have, and then also did not happen like that. It hit me by shock, but I mean, I thought they'd done a really good job sitting. I had a bunch of people over at the house, and we watched it, and I was in my room by myself with the laptop, but I mean, I thought they'd done a really good job for it to be online, and I thought it was pretty cool how they went and surprised the people at their house. That was cool, but I mean, it's not the same experience, but it was better than I thought it was going to be for sure.
Well, winning 14th Region Player of the Year, Estill County's had a couple of those in the last 3 or 4 years now. So talk about that award and just what it felt like to bring that honor home.
Oh, it was awesome. I don't have many individual goals when the season starts, but that was one of them. I kept to myself. I wanted to win. And the coolest thing I thought was that little voting thing they had, which didn't mean anything, but just all these people in the community coming around telling me how many times they voted for me. That's what that's all about. It was pretty cool, to be honest with you. But yeah, that was one of my goals at the beginning of the year, and I achieved it. So, but I thought it was pretty cool with that little what it meant for the community more than anything.
So now you're getting ready to go play golf at EKU, and again, it's with everything that's going on, it's still putting a wrinkle into that. Talk about what you're doing right now to prepare for the upcoming golf season, which will be your freshman season at EKU.
Well, I mean, I work at the golf course, and I'm here every single day, even if I don't work. I hit a lot of balls, but if I'm hitting it good, I normally just play. I just go out there and play all day, every day, and whatever I do wrong on the course, I fix at the range. So just like anything else, like basketball, I mean, all I want to do is play it. So I go with the flow, but it's going to be a different feeling for sure, being around 10 guys that are just as good, if not better than me. That's going to be what pushes me. That's what I can't wait for.
Have you been talking to some of those guys and to the EKU coach?
I'm good friends with 2 of the freshmen coming in, and I know a few other guys on the team. And I've been talking to Coach a lot. He's a good guy. I get along with him really well. I'm looking forward to it for sure.
You know, you've been playing at Gibson Bay a lot. Is there anywhere else you've been playing at to kind of get ready for the upcoming season?
I just play at our 9-hole course in Irvin all the time, and other than that, no, just Gibson Bay. That's the only 4 courses I play.
Well, let's talk about some of the guys that have helped you, become better at golf and that you would attribute to the success that you've had.
Definitely my dad. He's always been, from the get-go, just telling me, doesn't really care when I shoot, just telling me to go out there and have fun. And he's always been there for me and put me in the right position to succeed. Another guy that's helped me a whole lot would be Andrew Farmer. Whenever I was in 7th grade, he was a senior in high school and kind of took me under his wing. And then ever since that, he's always been there. Works me out a little bit in the weight room. It's always been like my role model, who I've looked up to. And it's just people like that if somebody else doesn't have, I hope they find.
When does the season start with EKU?
My first day is August 12th, I think. I think the season, the first tournament's maybe early September.
So what are you going to do between now and then to make sure that you're ready?
Just exactly what I've been doing all summer and been doing my whole high school career. Just over here every single day, practicing on the range, chipping and putting, playing as much as I can. And I mean, just hopefully the hard work pays off whenever it's time. That's all I've been telling myself, so we'll see how it goes.
All right, Joe, I appreciate your time, my man. We will be talking to you very soon, and might even see you out on the golf course sometime.
All right, I appreciate it.
I'm Michelle. And I'm Jennifer. And in the spring of 1992, Bishop Small Engine Repair was born in our mom and dad's barn in Estill County.
Then in the fall of 1992, we made the move to Madison County, where we are today. With the support of our family, customers, and community, we have continued to grow in the outdoor power industry. With a full line of products from Kokudet, Grasshopper, Echo, and Shindawa, we can help you tackle your yard so you can enjoy it with your family. Bishop Small Engine Repair, where our focus is our customer. Stop on in, 119 North Estill Avenue in Richmond. We can't wait to see ya.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today, with no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
Patrick O'Neill has been serving Central and Eastern Kentucky since 1995. When someone is accused of something they didn't do, or when a good person makes a mistake, they need the best representation they can find. And that's Patrick O'Neill. Whether it's criminal defense, Social Security, disability, personal injury, workers' compensation, or deeds and wills, when you need legal advice, trust the expertise of Patrick O'Neill. He will get you the money you deserve. His office is located in Jackson, but Patrick practices all over Central and Eastern Kentucky. For more information or for a free consultation, call 606-666-2990.
Who makes the best meal in Richmond? Nuevo Vallarta. Friendly service, a place that's good for kids and good for groups. Head to Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. Nuevo Vallarta is known for warm hospitality, great prices, great food, and the best margaritas and fajitas in town. Doesn't a huge 32-ounce ice-cold beer sound great? Start with an appetizer, order a la carte, or choose from their huge menu of Mexican favorites for grown-ups and kids. Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today. With no payments for 6 months and low rates, there's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
Back here on our final segment for the sports show, Jamie, and even though there's no sports, last week there was plenty to talk about. Cam Newton going to the New England, that was kind of something we discussed on last week's show. The Washington Redskins and Cleveland Indians now discussing the possibility of their name change after some sponsors have got involved and potentially, saying, hey, you might lose some money if we don't see a name change here. But to me, the biggest story from last week was Makur Makers, who decided to play at Howard University over the likes of UCLA, Kentucky, and Memphis. I mean, you got John Calipari with Kentucky, Penny Hardaway with Memphis, and then you got UCLA, another, one of those blue blood colleges. Instead, you choose to go to Howard. So very interesting decision for Maker. And, it's a guy that it could potentially be a very good college player, ranked number 16 in the ESPN recruiting class, and he chooses to go to Howard.
Yeah, and, the Black Lives Matter movement in the midst of everything happening right now, there was a lot of talk on Twitter of encouraging athletes to go to these historically black colleges and universities. And he's the first one that we've seen, or at least the top one that we've seen do that. And I don't know, man, like if he ends up playing there and that school gets more attention, they get on TV more, it brings money to the institution, it brings more awareness to how those colleges and universities, why they were established and what they represent. Like, a lot of good can come from that, and a lot of things can happen because of him going there. Now, his recruitment's a whole other story. Like, he technically still may end up in the NBA, depending on if they're able to have workouts, and the draft isn't until October. So I'd flip a coin on whether he actually plays at Howard or not. But even the commitment itself to raise awareness and encourage other guys to do it could end up being a big deal.
So he said on his Twitter account, I was the first to announce my visit to Howard, and others started to dream, what if? I need to make the HBCU movement real so that others will follow. I hope I inspire guys like Mikey Williams, who's another big prospect, to join me on this journey. I am committing to Howard U and Coach Kenny Blankney. And Maker, again, is a 6'11" front court player and is ranked number 16 in the ESPN 100 class for 2020. He has also entered his name into the NBA draft, but he is likely to withdraw if he's not expected to be a first-round pick. He is ranked number 75 in ESPN's NBA draft rankings. And just another interesting aspect there for college coaches, and all this is coming from the ESPN.com website. But if you're a college coach right now, with everything that's going on, you've got to find a way to counteract the NBA G League, and now you've got this BLM movement, the Black Lives Matter movement, which is pushing players to choose some of these, these black colleges or historically black colleges. It's a big deal. I mean, and if a guy like Maker chooses this and more players start to follow in his footsteps, then it could create even more parity in college basketball, which we've seen a lot of here recently.
Now, yeah, he's not going to go to Howard and make them a national title contender, but taking these top guys off of the teams that are already loaded, you're right, it does spread the talent out. And I think this is different from what we've seen before. We saw Ben Simmons go to LSU, Cade Cunningham, the top 2020 recruits at Oklahoma State. Like, some top dudes have gone to some random schools, maybe for money, maybe not. We'll maybe find that out someday. But this is different. This is a social justice decision. This is an activism decision. This is not based on money or sometimes people will go play at colleges where their brother's a coach or their dad's a professor or whatever. This is none of that. This is making a decision to support a cause. And I think that could end up being more powerful than a lot of these other top recruits that we're seeing go random spots.
I mean, Makur Maker could be the Colin Kaepernick of college basketball with what he's doing. I mean, he really could. He could be a guy that other people start to follow because of the decision that he has made. It's very interesting for some of these guys because of when you look at college basketball, we've seen a lot of these bigger universities that are getting all these bigger players. You look at what Duke did when they had Zion Williamson, Kentucky, in their success with some of these bigger names, not have the success in the tournament. And some of these schools that have 2 5-stars and a bunch of 3 and 4-star guys that are making these deep runs. If Maker could convince a couple other of these guys to join him there, well, you're playing in a much smaller conference. You might be able to really have a good seed. I mean, there's potential if he could get 1 or 2 more guys to join him there, that this team could be. I'm not going to say they're going to be a national championship contender, but they could be a scary team to play in the tournament, coming from one of those smaller conferences and being a smaller school.
And that increases awareness. The more success they have, the more big names they have on the roster, they're going to be on TV a lot more. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen a Howard basketball game on television, but I guarantee you if he goes there, they will be. And if he gets anybody to join them, they'll be on there a lot. And that's, I'm sure, part of why he's doing it.
Real quick, Jamie, the Washington Redskins potentially changing their team mascot, which their owner, Dan Snyder, has been against in years past. But now after seeing some pressure from some of his big sponsors, FedEx, which sponsors their stadium, Nike is kind of giving some pushback. Now they are discussing the possibility of changing their name. If you could choose a mascot for Washington, what do you think would be a good one?
Oh, man, I tell you what would be an awesome one, except it's awful. When I actually looked at a big, long list of mascots one day just to kind of get an idea for some other schools that were considering changing. My favorite was the Thunder Ducks. I don't remember what school it was, but if they could be the Washington Thunder Ducks, they would have my undying support.
Well, I don't know much about Dan Snyder, but what I do know is, he's not really big into the BLM movement, but if somebody could possibly take over this team, I've got the perfect name for them, okay? The Washington Dream, kind of named after the I Have a Dream speech from Martin Luther King. So if you could get, maybe a black owner could take over this team, the Washington Dream, I think, would be a really good team name for them, especially given with what's going on in the world right now with the BLM movement and everything. I think that would be a good team name for them.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I have an aversion to team names that don't have an S in them. I can't cheer for the Heat or the Thunder, the Tulane Green Wave. If it doesn't end in an S, I struggle. So I would have I would have a problem with the Dream for that reason. But no, I think that's a good one. I mean, it's in our nation's capital. There are so many things they could get to represent the country. And the fact that the Redskins have been there for so long is just, I don't know. It just adds a big piece to that story. But I don't know if the Patriots weren't in New England. I think that could be a good one as well. I think there are a lot of options. The baseball team went that route with the Nationals.
Yep.
I think there are a ton of good options out there, and it's probably overdue.
Well, it's time for us to go off the air. Jamie, I appreciate your time. I also want to say thank you to Joe Benton from Estill County for joining us on the show tonight. We will see you next Monday. You've been hanging out with us here on the Sports Show, folks. Again, next Monday we will have an update from the KHSAA as to what fall sports will look like. That's coming up next Monday. Join us then for the Sports Show on the stations of Wallingford Broadcasting and WBONTV.com.